Welcome to Art Talk Music. It is such a pleasure to be back recording and editing and getting to work on these podcast episodes. This is Art Talk Music, and I'm Claudio Toulouse. And it's been quite a while since I've put something out. And it's kind of because I've been in a Valentine's Day holiday for a little while. That's right. It's a good thing to find love in your life every once in a while. Well, I should say every once in a lifetime. We all hope to be able to find someone so special in our lives that you don't want them to go anywhere. Now, my episode today is with one of the people in my lives that has affected me and been such an instrumental key person in raising me as a musician and a human being, interacting and trying to make a living playing music and being some sort of aspiring guitar player. I'm speaking about the man, Mr. Michael Anthony. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Anthony, who I now call Uncle Mike, when I was in 7th grade, and a visiting high school brought their guitar class in there. Presentation to us was so mesmerizing to see, and I was playing guitar in the middle school, and I eventually got to be in Mr. Anthony's class as a freshman, and so I really developed a relationship with him from the get-go as a high schooler. And I started taking lessons with him. I eventually joined the jazz band and then just continued taking lessons with him privately until I got to university, where then he became my my private guitar teacher as a man that has done so much in our community. It's such a pleasure to have such a close relationship with this guy because not only does he have a heart of gold, but the credentials are literally pages and pages and pages and pages. I mean, Uncle Mike is one of the prolific recording guitar players of the 60s, 70s, and 80s when he was so active recording themes like the Flintstones, Spider-Man, Dukes of Hazzard. He was the guitar player on the Carol Burnett Show, where he eventually met his wife, Kathy Fishback at the time, because, of course, her mother began the dance school here in Albuquerque, Fishback Dance Studios. So eventually, Uncle Mike, after being a session studio guitar player and doing so much work within that, moved back to Albuquerque, New Mexico with Kathy to kind of move into the business of helping out with the school, and quickly became, of course, the man on the guitar around Albuquerque. So it's always awesome getting to sit down and play with him, to sit down and talk just over lunch with him. But when we get down and play, Uncle Mike and John Maestas and I do the same thing where we'll take a song and expand it anywhere from 6 minutes to 16 minutes. And it's a fun experience, but it's just the way we speak musically. And there's so much energy to it. And so in just a second, you're going to listen to one of the songs that we jammed on before we sat down to really talk and share our thoughts about the show that we've got coming up. That's right, Uncle Mike, Miss Hillary Smith, who is absolutely one of Albuquerque's premier singers. She's definitely my favorite and an amazing, amazing singer that's been doing every single Tuesday, every first of the month with Albuquerque Jazz Orchestra over at the Cooperage. And Uncle Mike and her play in that ensemble, but also Tom Goronick put in their ear last year the idea of maybe doing a Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald tribute. And lo and behold, Tom Goronick reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in perhaps playing on that same night for the Summer Local Thursday series. And it's happening. It's happening August 15th. But it's such a treat to sit and talk with him anytime I get to and to share the stage with him. that show is definitely going to sell out. So I encourage everybody getting their tickets, and it's going to be quite an event. Uncle Mike is one of the most special people in my life, and I look forward to having many more episodes with him and digging into his story and playing, maybe even doing some YouTube videos that really explore his books that he has put out about warm-ups, about the roadmap of the jazz guitar. I mean, Uncle Mike has got so much knowledge over all of the years that he has studied with the greats, from Howard Roberts to Joe Pass, to all the guys that he shared time in the studio with and would grab licks off of, and now are his contemporaries. It's something special, and he is truly a treasure in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And for that, I definitely recommend you follow Uncle Mike. If you haven't gone out to go see him, I don't know what you're doing. You need to go see Uncle Mike perform, because that guy is one of the most lyrical, beautiful, amazing jazz guitar players, just guitar players in general. Because you might see him playing with the classical symphony, doing a pops concert. You see him putting on all kinds of hats like he used to in the studio session days. And I'm grateful to him for having had shared everything about the guitar and his view on everything in life, like spirituality and manhood. I could talk about this man for hours, as you see. So I'm going to shut up, and we're going to get to some of the music. It's a beautiful jam that we do on Softly as in a Morning Sunrise.
We'll do it again. We're going to do this till we get it right, man.
Ha ha! Let's do it. It is awesome to be here with my teacher, my mentor, my
Thank you,
Uncle
man.
Mike. Thank
and
you for being
I'm proud
back.
of my buddy here, Claudio.
Thank you,
Yeah.
man. Thank you. It's wonderful to have you back in the garage, in the hot, scorching
This is
garage.
all right, I like it. New Orleans, right?
That's right. We are channeling and thinking about our good buddy John, who we just talked to on the phone.
Yeah, man. His house got flooded, and
It's pretty crazy to think about and see, and
I know.
have that be something you worry about.
I know. We've been very fortunate here.
Mm-hmm.
Very fortunate here. And
I couldn't agree more.
yeah, well, when I see the news every night, I'm humbled. When I hear all these places they get, they lose their homes, either fires, mud. What do we call
The
it?
mudslides.
The mudslides.
Of course, in California. Yeah.
Flooding.
yeah.
There's so many different ways. Earthquakes.
Oh yeah, man.
L.A.
You
had
and I
a
both
bunch of
lived in
earthquakes.
L.A. for a little bit.
Now I
You a
was
lot
there.
longer.
Yeah, I was there this week. They had two big ones, but what did they say? The first one had 24 aftershocks.
Whoa.
See, now I know what all this means. I was there for some earthquakes.
Yeah.
Back in, I was there in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And, late 50s. In the second earthquake, they go, you can't tell the difference between an aftershock and a real earthquake.
Wow.
That's how strong some of the aftershocks are. You're thinking, this is another earthquake. It's just an aftershock from the first one.
Wow.
A lot of times, yeah. So they had somebody says something like 2,400 aftershocks. Then they had a second earthquake. And the second earthquake was 7.1.
That's the one I saw and heard about because it happened during like some awards show that I was watching.
Oh, okay. So it was up in this area called Ridgecrest. Now, I drove past there. So I'm glad I went there just a few weeks ago to go play my guitar night with John Pisano, right?
Yeah, which you do every summer.
Yeah. And the wild thing was this. Last 2 summers, I went in July. And both summers, I got caught in the monsoons.
Wow.
Driving, going and coming. The week there was fine, but then coming home, it was like not vacation, driving to get there and come home. Last summer, the summer before we were in, we don't like to rush. So I drive from here to Kingman. And that night we were in Kingman and they had a thunderstorm that was unbelievable. The power was coming in and out. We're watching TV. And at one point, there was such a thunderbolt that our front door got unlocked.
Whoa.
And opened.
Whoa.
Yeah. It shook the building so that the front door opened.
Yeah.
That was that year. Last year, I was driving and we take a break and gas up at around Flagstaff. And from Flagstaff to Kingman, which is usually about a 2.5 hour drive, it took over 3 hours to get there. It started raining the minute I left Flagstaff and heavy rain all the way to Kingman. And I couldn't see the lines in the road. I considered getting off or whatever many times, but all the traffic's on there, so you don't feel alone. Everybody's on there, and you just stay in motion.
Yep,
and you
that's
can't
right.
see anything, and I'm following the tail.
That's right, the
how
taillights
much it was. I'm
in front of
following
you.
the tail out of the guy in front of me. Meanwhile, these semis are coming by, and they're splashing all over you.
I
Like your
know, they're
windshield,
going
the whole thing.
faster. Oh.
Yeah, and they don't have any respect for what's going on. So that was just really frightening. So, and then coming back, we had high winds and some more rain and stuff getting to Kingman again. So I thought, back to June. So this year we went to June again, and
it was all
it was
right.
a nice, fun, scenic drive, and I really felt like I was on vacation.
Good.
Rather than frightened to get in the car and no wonder what's going to happen.
Right.
Anyway, sorry to sidestep on
No,
that.
man, no. It's a part of life as we all get into traveling and you think about, sometimes I travel so much that I don't think about the weather and how the situation is everywhere
Well,
you're
that's
going.
good that you get lucky about most
Well, I
of
get
it.
very lucky, yes. But at the end of the day, when it hits you right in the face, you can't ignore it.
Right, you can't do that, yeah.
We were, of course, mentioning how we were speaking with John Maestas earlier and how in New Orleans right now, his whole apartment is up to their ankles, past their ankles in water. Up to their knees,
knees, yeah.
It's a pretty scary situation to think about.
And us
just
being
in
who we
general.
are, first thing we're saying, how are the guitars?
I was worried. I saw a video and I thought I saw
That
some
is
guitars in the
terrible.
water and I was like,
Oh, the guitars. But anyway, well, just one last comment on the earthquake. Back in 1971,
Which is when you were living in LA.
That's when I was living in LA.
When were you living, the
60s
to the 80s, 1980s?
I was living there. I moved from Brooklyn, New York in 1955.
1955, you moved from New York to LA.
Yeah, went to Van Nuys High School.
That's right.
Marilyn Monroe went to Van Nuys High School.
Wow.
But she was before my time. Yeah, a few years. But she went to Van Nuys High School.
Dang.
Anyway, and all that cruising stuff that was going on, and the Valley Girls and all that stuff, that was when I was growing up, you know. But 1971, I was doing studios now, because I started studios in the early 60s. But I remember that because the night that we had that earthquake, I had done a recording, a commercial recording, and it was on my acoustic. I remember that because it was a different thing than I usually do, and it was just some solo guitar stuff. And got home, and it was later that night we got the earthquake, and that was 7.3. And that was like the aftershocks for days. Again, the aftershocks you thought was another earthquake because they were so powerful. And we had some people who lost water and power at their house come and stay at our house during this period of time. And they were rationing water and stuff in the city. So that was the time where, Yeah, and there were, of course, there's always humor. Somebody has to find humor in all of this.
Of course.
One comedian he said, well, I had the earthquake in my house last night, and you were going back and forth. You fell. I was trying to go down the hallway to make sure my sons were okay, my two little boys, and I was being tossed from one wall to the next, back and forth to get down to their room,
Wow, man.
But then later on, some comedian come on and he said, and you could relate to this because this is what you had. He says, boy, during that earthquake, he says, my house changed zip codes 5 times.
So just to, rap for a second about LA, many people know you as the dean of jazz guitar here in New Mexico.
Well, that's embarrassing.
And
actually.
by God, why is it embarrassing?
That's really embarrassing.
What?
There's other fine players here, really fine.
Yeah,
players.
you don't like that title. It's always been used for you though, always in PR and everything.
And those guys respect me as well for my experience and what I did in LA. But still, I don't like to walk around with that, with a badge.
I know you don't say it. You're not like, hey, the dean of guitar is here.
Not at all, I'm still learning like everybody else.
For sure.
Take after my mentor Howard Roberts that way.
Of course. But we were speaking a little bit about how we wanted to. At least I wanted to have you on this podcast, not just for the hours and hours of conversation that we could have and sharing guitar stories or talking about your life on the road, traveling with the plethora of musicians and artists that you worked with, but. We're going to be doing a show together. We're going to be sharing a bill at the Outpost Performance Space.
That's going to be so much fun.
Next month.
Looking forward to you doing the opening show.
I'm so excited.
What am I going to do after you? You guys are going to be awesome.
Come on. Are you kidding me?
No, we got 2 different worlds going. We got 2 different worlds going.
I'm so looking forward to what you guys do.
But usually they do the small band first and then the large band second.
They cannot be putting the heavyweights opening up for me. No way. No way in my life would I ever allow myself to.
You guys are going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to that so much.
I'm very excited about it.
Hearing your music that you're a wonderful composer. I'm so proud of you, man.
Thank you, Uncle Mike.
That's awesome. And guitar player, yeah.
Well, you're to blame for a whole lot of the stuff coming up, man. I used to play my compositions for you a lot growing up, and you'd always give me sound, constructive criticism. Even if I didn't hear it, I'd come back months or years later and be like, Uncle Mike, look what someone told me about my composition. You're like, hey, Claudio, I told you that a long time ago. I'm like, oh, dang it, Uncle Mike, because I wasn't ready to hear it then, But at the end of the day, it's awesome to get to share the stage with you at the Outpost, which I've done before, but in different settings. But this time, you and
we did the Lineage concert last year.
That's right, and we just came on our year anniversary of that. Isn't that neat, man?
That you, me, and John.
That's right.
We had Milo Jaramillo on bass, who recently posted. Allison Davis posted, and of course Andy Poling on drums.
That is so true.
And
man.
we worked up some gnarly stuff for that.
We did, man. We pulled out Jaguar. We pulled out a couple we had awesome little arrangements.
That was Johnny Smith's blazing composition.
Yes.
Later on, I did a concert. It was the following September at that church, that St. John's Church.
Yes.
They do their jazz series, and it was just our trio. And I hadn't seen Malo since. Malo showed up, and he says, man, that concert we played with you guys, I forgot the word he used, but it was basically, like, that. Oh, he says, that was like totally high-powered. That was the term he used.
Yes, Milo's great with those one-liner
Yeah,
statements.
yeah.
Man. He's awesome. It was an amazing experience to get to honor you, but to get to share the stage with you now in this different setting is going to be awesome because I've always admired the hell out of the way that you play solo guitar, but even more so the times that I've heard you play behind a singer. And this time you're playing with who, in my opinion, is Albuquerque's premier vocalist, not just for
absolutely.
her amazing following that she has of everyone that loves her,
Yeah.
but for her ability and versatility. Even though she doesn't like to consider herself a jazz singer, she's been, the resident singer with AJO
Yeah.
at the Cooperage for the past year or so, right?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
And so,
she's she kicks the band. She does the last two tunes of each set, and just the band is fired up anyway.
Yeah.
But when we add her to it, just as we're supposed to go off stage,
Spreading some gas
she just
on fire,
sparks it up another
Yeah.
notch. She
she
just
does.
does that.
Yeah.
She's amazingly inspiring in her whole energy.
She is. She is, and she's an amazing soul, and
We're gonna need at least 2 rooms that night because you're gonna fill one room because you have your following.
oh, come on, Uncle Mike. No,
yeah,
I was teasing, and
very
I was,
happily.
I was saying
and
that.
then she's got her following,
And
there'll
you've
be
got your
there'll be
following,
a few
Uncle
people
Mike.
that'll come and see me.
We know. I've told you that.
And then
I
there'll
was
be
a
the
student.
people that want to see all 3 of us, of course.
I know I've told you this before, but that I was a student showing up to your concerts and the show was sold out and dumb me didn't get a ticket beforehand. How many of your tickets have not been sold out at the Outpost? Let me count on one hand, 0. So I'm excited. But you and Hillary Smith will be performing a tribute to Joe and Ella.
Right, meaning Ella Fitzgerald. I'm going to put Ella first because she's the lady. Ella Fitzgerald, and therefore Hillary, and then Joe Pass. And I'll be, like we said earlier, I will be looking up to the heavens and saying, Uncle Joe, please tap me on the shoulder.
Yes, you will be channeling Uncle Joe
As I
Pass.
always do when I play solo on KUNM.
Yes.
Just before I go on, I say, Uncle Joe, tap me on the shoulder,
Give
tap
me your
on the
blessing.
head,
Yeah,
tap me anywhere, so I can do you justice.
Well, let's start a little bit farther back because, I know many people know this, but for the people that don't know, you studied with Joe Pass for a time. How did you first get to meet Joe Pass?
Well, actually, Howard Roberts is my main mentor.
Of course.
Give that.
Of course,
that
the man.
is the foundation. That's the carpet.
Yeah, he is your Uncle Mike within my life. Yeah,
and it was Howard that introduced me to Tom Tedesco, Joe Pass, Al Viola. A lot of people don't know Al's name, but Al was Frank Sinatra's guitar player for 35 years.
Yeah.
So all those guys were like uncles to me. Herb Ellis, he introduced me to everybody. He introduced me to the contractors, the other musicians, et cetera, et cetera. Bob Bain.
Yes.
Bob Bain was Henry Mancini's guitarist. He played, a lot of people don't remember, but it was so iconic. You can YouTube it. Was the Peter Gunn series? It was a detective series, and it was the opening thing on that was don 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 don. It was a guitar lick.
Yeah.
And it was Bob Bain who played that lick, and he showed us exactly how he did it when we were hanging out with him about a year or so ago before he passed. Well, more than a year ago because he passed away a year ago now.
Yes.
But me and Tim May and Mitch Holder were all students of Howard, and we then would give tribute to Bob Bain every time. Even when I wasn't around, they'd be going regularly, and when I was there, Bob would plan a time we would hang out all afternoon together, and we would start out by having lunch and telling stories, and of course his stories outweighed all of ours.
Sure.
And then we would end up jamming, But at one point, one of us asked him, how did you play that lick? And he showed us how he did it, and he did it like all downstrokes in the right hand. Yeah, all downstrokes. And then he changed strings on it. When I had to do it and I didn't know what he did, at one point I did a tour with Henry Mancini and Andy Williams. It was the Andy Williams show, and Hank Mancini was doing the music. So these are all things that I got off Howard. Howard recommended me for this tour, and it went all the way back east. Knew we performed in the something garden in New Jersey and New York, etc. So anyway, I had to play that lick on the electric the Dane Electro guitar. He had it written. I mean, that was that big 6-string guitar, which is an octave lower. I got rid of that. Mark Webber has been forever mad at me that I sold it. I don't use it for anything. I got a good piece of change for it. But anyway, not only that, but the thing is written in F.
Wow.
Hank Mancini didn't think about what he knew about a little bit of the guitar, but he didn't think about what the guitar player had to do. So it was F. You're always going back to the F. Don't. Always going back down to that F. And on a Dane Electro guitar, you're kidding? The frets are so far.
That's a
so
workout.
I figured it out all on one string, and I did the best I could, And when we got to that theme on the show, opened up with that in rhythm section, and then I was glad to put that darn thing down. And I was young then. I wouldn't. Now it would be crazy. My hands would be killing me.
Yeah.
But so that was all about Bob Bain. Bob Bain also did the Andy Williams show, and let's see, all kinds. Oh, he was the Johnny Carson Tonight Show guitarist, and I subbed for him a few times on that show, on that band. Yeah. So he did a lot of iconic. Oh, he also played for Frank Sinatra. He played the iconic hit, "I've Got You Under My Skin."
Oh, sure.
He was the great rhythm guitar on that. Nice. There was always rhythm guitar. Yeah.
So it was Howard probably that set you up on a session to meet Joe, right? Or how did you meet Joe?
Oh, no, Howard he introduced me to Joe. We must have all been, I don't recall the detail of that, but at some point I just met Joe, and he knew that I was Howard's student. And it was like
he knew
that.
Before, upon meeting you, being like,
it was like that. And he and Howard were friends. I got a picture of he and Howard jamming. That was wild because I never thought of them that they ever got together and did that.
Wow.
Got a photo of them totally looking different than we remember they looked, Yeah, two scruffy kind of young guys sitting in a chair next to each other, and they were talking. They had the guitars in their hand. Anyway, Howard is the underlying energy for all of everything that happened in my career.
Now, there's of course the famous story out there that when you were hanging on a session one time with Joe, he said to you, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing after the session?" You were like, "Nothing." He's like, "Come over to the house." Tell me about that.
He did that. Well, okay, and that story is in you can go to Vintage Guitar magazine. They did an article on me, a 6-page article, and it's already a couple of years ago. I can't believe it because it was on their shelf for a long time. But it was March 2017, if you want to check that article out, page 90. And the story's in there, but it was basically, we were out at MGM in Santa Monica doing just a morning picture call. So it wasn't a double call for all day or anything. It was just the one call in the morning. And I'm sitting next to Joe. Joe is actually to my left, and we're playing cues. And at one point he says to me, he says, "Hey, Mike," he felt like playing that day. And he says, "What are you doing after the gig?" I said, "Nothing, Joe." And he says, "Follow me to my house," and I did. And I spent the rest of the day at his house. I got to his house in Woodland Hills, and I spent a good 3 hours over there hanging out, which mostly he wanted to jam, but that ended up being a free lesson for me because I got to pick his brain, ask him about how he picked. And that's when he told me about the downstroke thing and all of that. I used to call it the Italian downstroke. And then I found out it goes all the way back to Django's days.
Wow. So it's a French downstroke.
I call it the European downstroke. Because
there we go.
First I called it the downstroke. Joe told me about it. Yeah. Al Viola told me about it because that's the way he played. Every time you change a string, you play a downstroke. And sometimes you play a downstroke just to start a new phrase, even if it's on the same string.
Interesting.
So that was the thing. And then this other guy named Al Bedini, I'll never forget his name. I was teaching in a store. Before I got going, I was going to college, teaching in a store, and this guy comes in and he's selling insurance. And I've got a break between students. I was happy. Yeah. This is just after the days I was going to store and driving an hour to that store and doing that kind of thing, teaching lessons, trying to build my students and my finances and playing gigs on the weekends. So he comes into the store, and at this point I'm teaching 6 days a week in one place, and I was in heaven because I didn't have to go anyplace else. It was a store in Northridge, Lively Arts Music, owned by Pat Hicks, who later was the creators of GIT.
Oh, yeah, Guitar Institute and Technology, which Howard Roberts was one of the
He was
first.
The creator, right. He was the creator.
Guys, yeah.
And but I was teaching and Pat Hicks was his partner. Later on, it morphed into MI. It is now still MI,
Musicians
Music
Institute.
Institute.
Right.
And it's gone through a lot of phases. But anyway, so Pat, I was teaching his story. I veered away from my story. Al Bedini comes in, and I've got a break in students, and he plays guitar, it turns out. He comes in, sits in with me, and he wants to jam on some tunes. The guy totally played me off the stand. He was an awesome guitar player, and here he was selling insurance. That was kind of scary.
Dang.
And it was like, whoa, what's a guy, And he wasn't one of the big names in doing a lot of studios and stuff, but he was a hell of a guitar player. He played gigs and did stuff like that, but to supplement his gigs, he was selling insurance. And anyway, he comes in and he's just playing like crazy.
Damn.
Again, another Italian guy, and he says, no, man, here's what you do. He says, when you change strings, you use a downstroke. So I had 3 Italians in a row telling me about that. So I called it the Italian downstroke. So anyway, that's that story. Okay, back to Joe. So I go to his house and we're hanging out. And I like to pick his brain about all these kind of things. And then he'd say, well, let's just see what you're doing on a C minor 7th. And I'm nervous playing in front of Joe. Joe, he's already a superhero of mine because, I bought records of all of these guys. And then the next thing, I'm sitting next to them on recordings. Okay. And I'm not in their league jazz-wise at all, at all. But they were such masters. And I was just like, whoa, I'm sitting next to Joe Pass. Whoa, I'm sitting next to Barney Gassel. Whoa, I'm on a session with Howard, Tommy, all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so... And I'm fumbling around on a C minor 7th chord, and he said, "Why don't you try something like this?" And he just goes, he just tears it up, And anyway, somebody gave me some thoughts and some ideas, and that was when he was telling me things like, when I said, "Well, but Joe, what should I have in mind when I play? How should I approach all of this?" He says, play so that the listener can hear the chord changes. So that was a big lesson. So I had to put that together. What does that actually mean? And how do I, and that came down to arpeggios, licks that have leading tones. What do we call them? Focus. What do we call those? Darn it. Focus notes or whatever, thirds and 7s on the chords and things like that. Now that's the beginning stage, but that's where you start to sound like the changes,
Guiding tones, is that what they're called?
Yeah, guide tones, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So approach notes later on. Now the great jazz players, Charlie Parker, all those guys, they didn't have all those names and stuff. They just played by ear.
They're just doing it.
They were just awesome. Yeah. But and they didn't even think modes, by the way. Howard Roberts didn't think modes. Joe didn't think modes.
Right.
But they knew that. They knew what it was. But they didn't think that way. I'm sure Charlie Parker wasn't thinking modes.
No.
But anyway, I don't even think Coltrane was thinking modes. And those
well, at
miles.
some points, I'm sure he was thinking the scales when he was digging through that encyclopedia and going through that one period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then after that, probably not. No.
Yeah. But anyway, the next thing that came out of that was when he gave me the thought about, and we did a little bit at his house. He says, try this. Let's just do 1, 6, 2, 5. And in the key of C, let's just say, and then you can do this in different keys: C, A7, D minor 7, G7, and just do very slow 8th notes, very slow. And then I started doing that. Oh man! Right away, I saw all kinds of holes in my playing, And he says the reason you do, he would still practice that way. And then you take a tune and do that. There'll never be another you, something like that. That's got a lot of changes, but then you're going very slow.
You play slow 8th notes.
Yeah, you can play, and I would find all kinds of holes in my playing. Oh, that part's kind of okay. Oh, now I'm lost here.
Yep.
Oh, now and playing extremely slow. He says for 2 reasons. Number one is playing slow helps you to hear where your idea, when you play the first few notes, where the line wants to go.
Yes.
And then you're trying to follow that.
Yeah.
So that's number one. That helps you to hear that and develop that, because when you're playing 90 miles an hour, you're going to just shuck and fake your way through a bunch of stuff, and you're not going to get better at that. Mm-hmm. You got to practice it slow. Mm-hmm. So the other thing he says, this was humorous, and he says, when you're playing slow like that, the other thing is when you make a mistake, whether technically or musically, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Because when you're playing fast, you can glide over a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And that was very true. And I do that to this day. I'll do things like that. And then he says, of course, you're not going to just play always even eighth notes, although he was kind of a master at that. There are different kinds of players. As we say, there's the players. In the earlier days, most players were hitting it, still you did it, and they did that. And then later on, the players came around and started phrasing and doing different things. Howard would call that the lyrical style, the Jim Halls, who later was called the Bill Evans of the guitar because of his harmonic concept and his phrasing. He was doing the same kind of phrasing that Bill Evans was doing, some fragmented stuff and things like that. So there's all kinds of variations of this, but the foundation is those eighth notes. So he says then later on you back off and you do the same thing again and you do your phrasing so that you don't get sold on that. But how many solos have I heard Joe Pass come out on at up tempo and just spitting it out of the gate, bang, a train right out of the gate, the racehorse, right? Shoo, guys like him and Pat Martino. And when I heard Pat Martino, I'm rambling, right? When I heard Pat Martino, I thought of him as an avant-garde Joe Pass.
Wow, interesting.
That's how I thought of him because they both did a lot of eighth note stuff.
Yeah.
And they would occasionally back off and then do some lyrical stuff, as Howard coined it that, the lyrical style. You play as if you're like composing your own tune.
Yeah.
Rather than just trying to play as many notes as you can.
Yeah.
So it gives you so many different avenues. And there's guys like Larry Coons, who's Dave Coons' son.
Sure.
Dave Coons and I are old friends. His dad, a lot of people don't know his dad, but he played with the piano player, I can't think of his piano player, George Shearing. And he was going with George Shearing about the same time I was starting to get going in the studios. And he forgot this, but I ran into him in a parking lot once in Capitol Records. And he, right in the parking lot, he says, "Hey," I said, "What are you doing? What's going on? We're checking in with each other." I followed him into this Les Elgart band. He was like a few years older than me. So he would be leaving a band. He would be leaving a band. And then they would be having auditions for guitar players to fill his spot. And I followed him into a couple of different bands. Fortunately, I got the gig after, 5 other 10 guitar players, whatever.
Yeah.
But he showed me Oleo in the parking lot of Capitol Records. Wow. And that's where I learned Oleo from Dave Coons, and he forgot that. I says, "Do you remember you showed me?" He says, "No, I don't remember that." So, but I remember. I'll never forget. But then his son came along, Larry Coons. I'm getting to. You talk about lyrical style. You can change gears with these different styles.
Yeah.
But Larry Coons is, and I'm repetitive about this, but it is really awesome that you'll hear him start a solo, and he'll be very spacey and play 5 notes. And then you'll be drooling at the choice of 5 notes he came up with, and in the order and in the phrasing. He just played a few sparse notes, and you're on the floor like, oh my God, that's gorgeous. So there's these different ways of approaching it. It's not all about just bam.
Yes, yeah. It's also the beauty in guitar is that you hand it to all these different people and it's going to sound different with everyone.
It sounds different with everyone. Yes, so many different voices. Well, they say, the guitar is so individual and so intimate that there are as many ways to play it as there are players to play it. That's why I kind of have no patience with people who only have a competitive mind. They always have to think of who's better.
I don't like that.
So and so better, and I want to see it. I want to see a duel between these. And they can't get past that. It's like these two guys are 2 different personalities, and they both have a different voice, and they're both equally great. And they don't like that mentality. They're all about somebody's got to be better than somebody. No, not if they're equally musically developed.
It's definitely like not just something that's been in the culture musically, but also obviously just in our mainstream culture of how people approach everything,
They do. It's us again.
There's actual competitions for music too, which don't help the case.
That doesn't help it all the way back to the beginning. Dance competitions, music competitions. Yeah. In some ways it helps. It has helped the business. And in some ways it has helped the life of the art. But it's sad that it takes that to do that, you know.
Right.
Because these great piano players going for a piano competition. Van Cliburn, I remember when he won the big competition, now he adjudicates.
Yeah.
And I remember back when I was a youth, he won this big thing. And then you listen to the second place guy and, well, what? This guy was amazing. How come wow, they're equally good.
Yes.
I don't see it. Somebody saw something in Van Cliburn that, and then there's the fifth place guy. He's ridiculous.
All of them are killing.
They're all ridiculous, you know, but somebody won.
I mean, it's the same with art too.
And it helps their career, and it does something for their career. Yeah,
of course, undeniably, undeniably. It's not to say that at an art festival, whenever one artist gets picked as the best of show, it doesn't mean that there weren't other amazing artists as well.
Right.
I'll
never forget when, was it A Star Is Born? What was the name of that show?
A Star Is Born, that was a show?
Was that a show?
Yeah.
Okay, A Star Is Born, it was a vocal thing, right? Mm-hmm. And Clay Aiken, that was right. He got second place.
Oh, that was American Idol.
American Idol, that's what it was. Clay Aiken got second
Ruben
place.
Studdard,
This is what, 20 years ago now, 18 years ago maybe.
Yeah.
And the big
Ruben Studdard.
Ruben, what was it?
Studdard.
You remember?
Oh, yeah.
So he won, and he was awesome. He was wonderful, but he won the competition, and then all of a sudden, there were hit after hit by Clay Aiken. Aiken. And I didn't hear anything from Ruben.
Isn't that funny?
Whatever happened to Ruben?
But I don't know if you know this, Uncle Mike, but that all The Voice, American Idol, all of those shows that are like to try and get you famous, you sign contracts beforehand going into there to where if you win, they own everything that you put out.
They kind of own you.
They own you, totally.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see, I think Kelly Clarkson and one other like famous girl country star were the only real singers that made it out of those things.
Catherine McGee, Kathy something. She ended up with a TV show as a star.
The other American Idol girl?
Yeah.
Well, there's Kelly Clarkson.
Kelly Clarkson.
Let's see.
Maybe it was American Idol. I'm not sure. And was she the winner? Or was it, she was against this gray-haired guy. He was about 40 years old, but he was prematurely gray.
Was it,
and I can't remember.
Was it Carrie Underwood?
No, it was Carrie. No, it wasn't her. Maybe it was a different competition.
Maybe it was an American Idol.
McGee or something like that. Was it? I can't remember. I'm in the ballpark. Somebody out there will hear what I'm saying, and they'll say, "No, stupid, it's this girl."
Yeah, sure.
But Catherine McGee or something like that. She was really cute and sang great. Awesome. I can't remember if she won the competition or this premature gray guy won. I can't remember his name. Gray-haired guy won. And and I'm thinking it's possible that she won.
Is it Bonnie McGee? No. I don't know.
Catherine McPhee.
Catherine.
Is that right? Something like that. That's her, I think. Is that it?
She's an American actress and songwriter. She was the runner-up for the American Self-Titled. Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about.
Was it the American Idol?
Catherine McPhee.
Yeah. So she was the runner-up. And the guy that won was this kind of...
American Idol.
He was about 35 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He won the contest. Yeah, she was runner-up. Mm-hmm. He won the contest, and he was very talented, and he was good. But for some reason, he didn't have the... She got all the stuff later on, but I loved her. She was wonderful. Yeah.
I definitely don't feel bad for those people that didn't win first in those situations, right? Because they as you just pointed out, are the ones that actually reap the benefits because they're not tied into those situations and they're able to be they're able to take advantage of the situation.
Recently, she was on a television show I was watching where she was a star.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she was the lead, the female lead. But we've gone on a long time on that one.
No, that's awesome. So kind of wrapping it back to August, because I know we don't have too much time here on the podcast, but you and Hillary Smith are going to be doing a tribute to Joe, to Ella Fitzgerald and Joe Pass.
Right.
And I'll be playing some original music after that, and I'm pretty excited for that.
You're going to play first.
That's right.
Yeah,
Not after that, sorry.
I'm going to be sitting there just in glory.
Oh, man.
Watching you and your trio. Yeah.
I'm excited, man. Tell me about some of the other shows you've been doing this summer. I know you just performed with Bobby Shue for the wonderful Jazz Under the Stars.
Yeah, okay, so let's see. The first one, I've had more than my stay at the museum. Marcus has been more than kind to me. I did I kind of said a thing recently, as I was saying earlier at lunch, that I kind of mostly like to play mostly concerts these days. Concerty things. They give me a focus. I study some music for a while, and then when I'm past that, then I've got a little breather room, and I do my own thing, until the next one comes up. Well, back in last November, actually, the Philharmonic called me, and I did a Leonard Bernstein piece with them that had electric guitar. So I love that. I love stuff like that. It reminds me of the old studio days. I got to follow the conductor. I got to read the part.
Yes.
I've got to blend with people. I'm not the lead. I'm just part of the orchestra. I like that very much. That is an extremely important, excuse me, an important part of musicianship, I think. There are many people who put all the weight on being a lead player and being a star.
Right.
And in my experience in the studios, we had lead players that came along and went. And all of us players that were the background players and the blending players, we were the ones that were there the whole time. And we had famous lead players coming and going and coming and going, and they were fine. But we could all do what they did. That's the thing that's unknown.
Yeah.
That the studio player who had to walk in and learn a part in 5 minutes and then be able to play it, and it might be a lead like them. It might be a lead, or it might be a blending part. It might be a harmony part. It might be a rhythm part. It might be accompanying a singer. So the idea of being known how to be able to enhance the music is an important part of musicianship and musicality that is undersold by people that are all about the lead and all about stardom.
Yes.
In my humble opinion. But it's also in my experience of 60 years. So I got something behind what I'm saying,
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it has a lot to do with the growth of my musicianship, But where were we?
We were just kind of talking about some of the shows you've done.
Okay, some of the shows.
workshop.
Thanks for getting me back on track. Yeah. So I did that with them back then, and that was fun. And then fast forward to the first thing I did at the museum was Albuquerque Jazz Orchestra, led by, of course, Glenn Coster, the wonderful Glenn Coster, and we did the swing night, and that was a lot of fun. And then a couple of weeks after that, about 3 weeks after that, we did. In between that, I went to L.A. and did my yearly feature on Tuesday night guitar night with John Pisano. John Pisano, for those of you who are a little older, or if you can go to the
YouTube,
the YouTube or the
Google
or Google, he was a guitar player in the well-famed big Tijuana Brass in the early '60s, and he wrote some tunes for them, and he played with the guitar with them. They were huge. And he was also Peggy Lee's guitarist, and he was a studio guitar player, so I would cover for him here and there as well. And so he hosts this Tuesday night guitar night. Been doing it for over 20 years now. It started way back in the 60s with guys like Howard at oh boy, can't remember the venue. Dante's.
Yeah.
Dante's. And we all took turns. Howard would have, it was Monday night guitar night then. It started out, and I even got in there with my quartet later, just before I left town. But then it was a lot of years it didn't happen. John Pisano restarted it again about 21. They celebrated 21 years this season.
Wow.
So I went out there and did the Tuesday night guitar night with him, and it was great fun. We just call tunes and play. I had Chuck Burkhofer with me. He and I did the Burnett show together, Carol Burnett show together. And this is another thing that was in that magazine article.
Sure, the vintage guitar.
Yeah, about I taught him the Barney Miller lick, the boom, do-do-dum. It was a 70s hit half-hour TV show. And it's a long story. I would refer you to the article to save you the space here. But I taught it to him on the Burnett show. I ripped off a James Taylor record is what happened. And then I would use it as a funk lick when Pete would call on me to just start something. Sometimes we'd call a jazz tune. Sometimes we'd play a Dixie chart. We had J.J. Johnson playing trombone in the band. We'd do some jazz, Peter Matz. He was the conductor. And anyway, so he was with me, and can't think of the drummer right now. But we had an awesome rhythm section, a lot of fun. So when I came back, then we did the Denise Donatelli show at the museum, which was
Bobby
very
Shoe.
challenging for every musician.
Right.
Those charts were very
It was Bobby Shoe featuring some members of
Bobby Shoe
AJO,
produced
some
the
members
show.
of the symphony.
And we had 10 strings from the symphony
and
as well.
Denise Donatello, who's from LA,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And it was a wonderful show. It was fully attended, except for we had a very windy night. We almost got blown off the stand. But we did that. And then a couple of weeks after that, a week before last, we had an Israeli drummer who came in and brought a young 21-year-old bass player with him, and we played Israeli jazz. So that was an interesting challenge. So this is what I was going to tell you at lunch. I'll share now. Ben Finn Burke and I were both asked to be guest artists on that. And that show was opened up by the Young Quartet.
The youth jazz ensemble, which is Paul, Evan, Jonah, and Mateo, which is the young
Right,
jazz
and they
group.
started and had a wonderful presentation and a wonderful following, a good turnout, the whole thing. So, and then we played the second set, of which he featured Ben on one tune, me on another, and then all of us on something. The challenging thing was it was Israeli jazz. It's got a slightly different tinge to it than our swing, our American swing. Just like if you go to New Orleans got its own
Their own
feel.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, they got their own thing. So that's how fine-tuned this all gets, you know.
Yes.
But on top of that, they sent me the music, and then I listened to the YouTube, and it was weird because the music written in 3/4, and the YouTube they're clearly playing in 6/8. So long story, I'll try and make it short. Was that then Ben had something with his part as well. So we didn't rehearse till Friday, the day before the concert, at the museum Saturday, which was a much better night weather-wise. But it sent us home Friday night, both of us with a headache, kind of, because we weren't going to argue with the main feature. He was a wonderful guy and a wonderful drummer. But he kept saying, yeah, it's in 3/4. And then he'd pick up the drumsticks and start playing in 6/8. What's going on here? So I said, okay, whatever you say. And I went home that night and studied my you-know-what off and almost rewrote my whole part because my part was written in 3. So one would say, well, what would be the difference? It's 6 beats and whatever's, and you come from here to here, and it's the same distance. But however, the feel is different.
Yes.
So in 3/4, let's say you'd have this. You'd have da, 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 da. In 6/8, you've got da, 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 da. The accent's on a different note. And that's the way he played it. And it was written the other way. So I started making notes for myself short of just rewriting my whole part out. The other part was I was thinking, I'll play chords on some of this, and maybe he wants me to play melody somewhere. No, he wanted me to play melody everywhere. No, this is your feature. I want you to be me.
Jeez.
So I worked on it. And,
Did his homework.
I nailed it. I did my homework and nailed it, you know, and so did Ben. But we both later on commented to each other, we will bond over this the rest of our days. And then last Tuesday when we played at the Outpost with AJO, we saw each other and we said, wow, isn't this a breath of fresh air? Not really that wasn't. It was just that it was home base for us. You know.
It's a lot easier playing at the Coolidge with AJO. Than
so those were the concerts. And of course, the next one is going to be August 15th with you.
Right. That's right. I'll be starting the evening out.
Yeah,
and
we got together just once. She's a
it up.
busy girl, been in out of town a lot.
Yeah, man.
But we picked out a few tunes, about 6 tunes or whatever, and some tunes that they recorded, and we said, hey, we don't have to do everything they recorded. Let's do something that we like.
Yes.
So we're going to do a little bit of that as well. But I'm going to take the role of Joe Pass solo guitar behind her.
Oh, of course. Yes.
And
and people can find those tickets at the Outpost Performance Jazz website. I'm going to put a link within the description of this podcast so people can check that out, as well as purchase the tickets, because that show will sell out.
That'll sell out.
Definitely want to get your tickets ahead of time.
Just you and Hillary alone. I mean,
come on now.
They'll be standing
You
outside.
and Hillary, come on.
Yeah, but you are a master promoter.
Well, I appreciate it, Uncle Mike. I'm just taking after.
No, that's amazing. That's beyond a gift. It's a skill that you have. That John Maestas and I we rave about you. It's like nobody can promote like Claudio. You're a master at that.
I appreciate that.
You
Uncle
are
Mike.
At your young years.
Well, I look forward to putting on another show. I know we talked last year about
And
making
how
it
old
an
are you now?
annual
May I ask
thing.
you, how old are you now?
Yes, sir. I'll be 30 this year. I'm 29.
Oh, shoot. Well, you're not so young then. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding you.
Over the hill, dirty 30.
I was calling you young, and here you are going to be 30. I'm kidding.
I love it, man.
30, you're still a baby.
I'm not getting any younger. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, you look at me and say that with a straight face. Hey, listen, at my age, I'm a good guy for all I've done in my fortunate career. And my hands still move. They can be better. It can always be better, but they're still moving, and I get to be involved with music and nourish my friendships with my former students and wonderful musicians, and still play the guitar, pick up the guitar, and, wherever it's at, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, it's a pleasure talking with you again,
Thank you,
Uncle
and
Mike.
thanks for inviting me for this as well.
Man, it was a pleasure playing some songs with you as well. So
Yeah.
we're going to play a little bit of the music at the beginning of the podcast and at the end.
Great, great, buddy. Thanks and it was a fun lunch today.
Heck yeah, that was beautiful. We'll definitely do it again. We won't tell Mr. O that we went to lunch because I'm sure he'll be jealous.
Well, we'll catch up with him. Okay.
We'll invite him out to
He doesn't have to be in
Barreras.
on everything.
On everything.
Because I have my lunches with just him on 101.
There we go.
We all do that.
There we go.
It's a great thing.
Beautiful.
Thanks,
Thank you,
buddy.
Uncle Mike. Love you, man. Thank
Love
you.
you too.
Thank you so much for listening to our talk music. Now, that show that Uncle Mike, Hillary Smith, and myself will be playing is happening on August 15th. That's a Thursday night. You can call and reserve your tickets at 505-268-0044 or visit the Outpost Performance Space online. We're going to wrap up with another jam between Uncle Mike and myself. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you have a wonderful day. It's like your tune, Uncle Mike.
Wait a second. Hey, Claudio. Oh, I hate when that happens. Oh, and I used to do that in the class. The kids they came apart, didn't they? They never saw that one before.
Do that all the time with me too.
They came apart in that class, man. I hate when that happens. That happens often. Okay, we'll go again. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4.
Sick, Uncle Mike.
It's fun.
I saw that. I saw that. I saw what you doing up there. You were doing it there, then you went up a minor third for the. Oh, it was sick. That was sick. I was like, I know that fucking chord. I know it. I know it well. That's my favorite Uncle Mike chord, man. How you doing on time?